Hola Magoulis, welcome back. Today I'll be taking a look at a very few minor but interesting characters whose actions and presence gave the whole atmosphere and helped make Castle Black feel like a living, breathing place. I'll also take a look at some of Mance Rayder's more interesting wildling lieutenants. Same rules apply. Two minor yet memorable characters from the Night's Watch are Chett and Small Pole. Their parts are kind of interlinked, so I'll do them together. Chett was the son of a leechman from the Riverlands who was sent to the wall after he killed the local slut who refused him because he's a total luggo, covered in boils. He was a steward who helped care for Maester Aemon and the Ravens. He enjoyed this job until Jon Snow recommended Samwell Tarly instead, because he could actually read. Chett is assigned to the kennels and is ate for Snow and Tarly stews and grows and boils like the ones on his fucking face. He personally wants to kill Samwell. During the Great Ranging beyond the wall, Chett conspires with a small group of brothers to mutiny, including Small Pole. Much less is known about Small Pole. He is a massive man, the strongest on the watch, who once snapped a wildling's back in a bear hug. Most oft forget Small Pole when they are listing strongest/tallest characters in A Song of Ice and Fire. He is a simpleton, and I imagine he was easily persuaded to mutiny. What we do know and all can love him for, though, is his compassion for animals. He wants to take care of He wants to take care of Lord Commander Moment's Raven, even if it means killing him and stealing it. The mutiny is stopped when it begins to snow afresh, but Chett is still moves to kill Tarly. But when the others attack, Chett flees and is killed and resurrected as a white. The rest of the ranging retreats to Craster's Keep, but on the way Samwell gives up out of fear and exhaustion. Gren and Paul remain back with him, and eventually Small Pole picks Tarly up and carries him, which made me like him a lot more. Bear in mind, although Sam is smaller than Paul, he is still heavier. While carrying him, Paul asks Sam for Moment's Raven, and is saddened to hear that they were all released at the Fist of the First Men. Now we get one of the most important scenes. Another, riding a dead horse, catches up to Gren, Paul and Sam. Small Pole unslung the long-hafted shaft strapped across his back. "Why'd you hurt that horse? That was Morny's horse." Sam groped for the hilt of his sword, but the scabbard was empty. He had lost it on the fist he remembered too late. "Get away!" Gren took a step, thrusting the torch out before him. "Away, or I'll burn!" He poked at it with the flames. The other's sword gleamed with a faint blue glow. It moved toward Gren, lightning quick, slashing. When the ice-blue blade brushed the flames, a screech stabbed Sam's ears sharp as a needle. The head of the torch tumbled sideways to vanish beneath a deep drift of snow. The fire snuffed out at once. And all Gren held was a short wooden stick. He flung it at the other, cursing, as Small Pole charged in with his axe. The whites had been slow, clumsy things, but the others were light as snow on the wind. It slid away from Paul's axe, armour rippling, and its crystal sword twisted and spun and slipped between the iron rings of Paul's mail, through leather and wool and bone and flesh. It came out of his back with a hiss. Sam heard Paul say, "Oh," as he lost his axe. Impaled, his blood smoking around the sword, the big man tried to reach his killer with his hands, and almost had before he fell. The weight of him tore the strange pale sword from the other's grip. It is here that Sam kills the walker, thanks to Paul disarming him. Gren checks Paul is dead and closes his eyes, but of course we know they should have burned the body, but doubtless they lacked the time and the fuel. Much later, when Sam and Gilly are fleeing from Craster's with their baby, they are attacked by Small Pole resurrected. Now, Gilly claims the white has come for the baby, and the fact that Paul ignores Sam's pleas and moves straight for Gilly and her baby tells us she's correct. This definitely gives weight to the idea that whites aren't just resurrected, but are either hive-minded or under direct control. The dagger that killed the other has no effect on the whites, so Sam, while being strangled, hits Paul with a burning piece of wood and they escape. Before he does though, he notices the blue glow disappear from Paul's eyes. I'd really like to hear your opinions about the contrast and similarities of the our side and the far side, aka White's Walkers, the Great Other and Dragons, Azor Ahai, and the Lord of Light, and the powers and capabilities and how they contrast or share traits. Donal Noye was a well-famed smith and armourer for House Baratheon. It was he who forged the warhammer that Robert would use to crush the life from Rhaegar Targaryen at the Battle of the Trident. During the siege of Storm's End, Donal took a glancing blow from an axe. The wound festered until the arm had to be amputated. After the rebellion was over, the crippled Donal Noye came north to take the Black, where even a missing arm could keep him away from the forge. In A Game of Thrones, we meet Donal through Jon Snow. It is he who puts a stop to the kerfuffle with the bullies and reveals to Jon what a spoilt brat he is, regardless of how hard Jon thinks he's had it. "You think you had it hard, being a High Lord's bastard?" the armourer went on. "That boy Dareon is a Septon's get, and Cotter Pike is the base-born son of a tavern wench. Now he commands Eastwatch by the Sea." "I don't care," Jon said. "I don't care about them, and I don't care about you or Thorne or Benjen Stark or any of it. I hate it here, it's too cold." "Yes, cold and hard and mean, that's the wall, and the men who walk it, not like the stories your wet nurse told you. Well, piss on your stories and piss on your wet nurse. This is the way it is, and you're here for life, same as the rest of us." "Life," Jon repeated bitterly. "Yes, life. A long life or a short one, it's up to you, Snow. The road you're walking, one of your brothers will slit your throat for you one night." "They're not my brothers," Jon snapped. "They hate me because I'm better than they are." "No, they hate you because you act like you're better than they are. They look at you and see a castle-bred bastard who thinks he's a lordling." The armourer leaned close. "You're no lordling, remember that. You're a Snow, not a Stark. You're a bastard and a bully." In A Storm of Swords, Noye shines. When Jon Snow arrives back at Castle Black after escaping the wildlings, it is Noye that trusts Jon's word and takes him to Maester Aemon to be healed. Even one-handed he carries Jon with ease. When the wildlings are preparing for their main attack, Noye takes command of the watch. He sends a warning to Molestown of the wildling party south of the wall and offers them refuge if they help defend Castle Black. Two big differences between books and show are: one, their stairs as well as the lift up the wall, and two, the band of wildlings Jon was a part of the band of wildlings Jon was part of attack from the south before the main attack. Now, during the battles of Castle Black, Donal proves he's still a clear-headed leader. When preparing the defence from the south, he has the 7th, 8th and 9th landings of the stairs covered in oil, as well as highly flammable piles of supplies beneath the first landing. And when the wildlings manage to get through, the top and bottom of the stairs are lit ablaze, and wind and fire do the rest. This method was key to victory. During the main attack from the south, Noye leads the watch again. In the show, his role is shared between Sir Alistair Thorne and Gren. He leads the defence atop the wall and gives command to Jon so he can take a small group down the tunnel to protect the gate from the giant Magmar Tundo egg called the Marty. Donal gives his life for the wall. When Jon finds him, Noye's sword is halfway through Mag's throat while the giant had crushed his spine in a bear hug. If the wildlings had gotten through the tunnel, even Stannis Baratheon and his army would not have been able to save the watch. When I think of Donal Noye, I reluctantly recall the Family Guy joke about the hard, tough guy with a heart of gold. He had a great introduction and a great death, and we will never see his like again. Dareon was a singer from the Reach who was caught in bed with the Lord's daughter, accused of rape and sent to the wall. He is raised as a man of the Night's Watch at the same time as Jon, and is arguably one of the most prominent Black Brother supporting characters throughout the story. In A Feast for Crows, Jon promotes Dareon to Wandering Crow, formerly Yoren's title, and by far the best role you could have in the Watch. I mean, seriously, go out in the freezing beyond and hunt wildlings, or stay here and wipe Maester Aemon's arse? No thanks, I think I'll walk around the fucking beautiful country, visiting various keeps and landmarks, meeting new people, and then of course, eventually changing my identity and fleeing to Essos, because obviously... Anyway, Dareon tries to do the same, but it's a total flop. I always thought he was a bit of a pussy, to be honest. At first I was like, yeah, he's a bro, but evidently not. He travels with Sam, Gilly and Aemon to Bravos on the way to Old Town, and they begin to run out of money, and Dareon is sent to sing for coin, but starts acting like a total dick, becoming really distant, and eventually renounces his brotherhood and throws his cloak in Sam's face. Sam summons his rage and beats the shit out of Dareon, which was really awesome and cathartic for so many reasons, and then leaves Dareon in Bravos.
Now this leads to one of my favourite Arya scenes. Now Dareon remains a singer and is successful enough to make a living, but while Arya is the cat of the canal, she makes note of his desertion. Whores called him the Black Singer, but there was hardly any black about him now. With the coin his singing brought him, the crow had transformed himself into a peacock. Today he wore a plush purple cloak lined with vair, a striped white and lilac tunic, and the party-coloured breeches of a bravo. But he owned a silken cloak as well, and one made of burgundy velvet that was lined with cloth of gold. The only black about him now was his boots. Cat had heard him tell Lana that he'd thrown all the rest in the canal. "I am done with darkness," he had announced. One night I pretended to leave Dareon to his destination, but instead slits his throat in an alley and dumps his body in the canal. Varamyr Sixskins is a wildling skin changer. He is one of the more fleshed out wildling characters who didn't make the show, which I imagine, as you'll find out, was due to budget. Varamyr was a premature baby, small and sickly, and was not expected to live long. He wasn't named until he was 4, but by then the name Lump had stuck around. When he was 6, he killed his older brother, better formed brother, by skin changing into one of the family's dogs and murdering him. After realising he was a skin changer, his father dragged him out into the woods and gave him to another warg called Hagen. Hagen went on to raise Varamyr, who named himself at the age of 10, teaching him the ways and rules of the skin changer, which Varamyr hated. When Hagen was dying, Varamyr killed him and then stole his wolf, forcing Hagen's soul out of it and denying him a second life. What a prick. Don't worry, it gets worse. Now, while living in Hagen's home, Varamyr's power grows until he controls 3 wolves, a bear and a shadow cat. He made himself a lord and had the nearby villages pay him tribute, and when he wanted a woman, he would send his shadow cat to stalk her until she came to him, which, depending on how you word it, either sounds really romantic or creepy, and I can reassure you it's creepy as shit. He had many bastards, but none inherited his war power. Now, by storm of swords, Varamyr has become one of Mance Rayder's lieutenants. He takes Orell's eagle for himself, which still has part of Orell's soul inside. Orell hates Jon, and Orell's hate for Jon is so strong, that Varamyr is compelled to hate him too. It is here that Varamyr confirms Jon is a warg for the audience. He also wanted to steal Ghost, but Mance refused. He uses the eagle to scout Castle Black, but it bursts into flames, apparently by Melisandre. When this happens, Varamyr has a sort of, he went a little funny in the head, just a little funny. His bear and Shadowcat flee, but the wolves stay with him. The prologue chapter of A Dance with Dragons is from Varamyr's point of view. He starts losing his mind and stays with a small and diminishing group of wildlings, hiding his identity. He is eventually stabbed by a small boy. He is eventually stabbed by a small boy when he tries to take his mother's coat from a corpse. Dying, Varamyr tries to enter a spear wife named Thistle. She becomes manic and biting her tongue off and scratching her eyes out until she expels him. And Varamyr's body dies, but his soul enters one of his wolves. The white world turned and fell away. For a moment it was as if he were inside the werewood, gazing out through carved red eyes as a dying man twitched feebly on the ground, and a madwoman danced blind and bloody underneath the moon, weeping red tears and ripping at her clothes. Then both were gone, and he was rising, melting, his spirit borne on some cold wind. He was in the snow and in the clouds. He was a sparrow, a squirrel, an oak. A horned owl flew silently between his trees, hunting a hare. Varamyr was inside the owl, inside the hare, inside the trees. Deep below the frozen ground, earthworms burrowed deeply and blind in the dark, and he was them as well. I am the wood and everything that's in it, he thought, exulting. 100 ravens took to the air, cawing as they felt him pass. A great elk trumpeted, unsettling the children clinging to his back. A sleeping direwolf raised his head to snarl at empty air. Before their hearts could beat again, he had passed on, searching for his own, for One Eye, Sly and Stalker, for his pack. His wolves would save him, he told himself. That was his last thought as a man. Now, this prologue don't really make any sense until Jon's death. It is a fairly common belief now that this entire chapter was foreshadowing how Jon would return in the next book. Dalla and Val are 2 wildling sisters. Dalla is the pregnant wife of Mance Rayder. She dies giving birth to his son during Stannis' intervention at the Battle of Castle Black.
so I'll mainly be speaking of Val, who is a far more important character and comes with plenty of speculation, especially when it comes to everyone's favourite homeboy, Jon Snow. Val is a beautiful young woman, competent, wise and brave. She is well respected within the entire wildling community and can travel safely to and fro, even aided by different clans. When Jon secretly sends her north, she comes back as and when promised, stupendously successful in finding Tormund. Val is so beautiful that all the Southerners think of her as a wildling princess, whereas the wildlings just know her as Dalla's sister, innit? She is a healer and of the old gods, which arguably it seems like a more worthy candidate than, say, Melisandre to help Jon Snow, or perhaps both, or of course neither. In a storm of swords she delivered her sister's baby before being arrested by Stannis, all the while being protected by Jon. This is an early piece of evidence to suggest a potential relationship between Jon and Val, as well as the few times Jon literally romanticises about her and is offered a hand by Stannis. Would I sooner be hanged for a turncloak by Lord Janos, or forswear my vows, marry Val, and become the Lord of Winterfell? I would need to steal her if I wanted her love, but she might bear me children. I might someday hold a son of my own bloods in my arms. I could name him Rob. Val would want to keep her sister's son, but we could foster him at Winterfell, and Gilly's boy as well. Sam would never need to tell his lie. We'd find a place for Gilly too, and Sam could come visit her once a year or so. Mance's son and Craster's would grow up brothers as I once did with Rob. I've always wanted it, he thought guiltily. May the gods forgive me. Val is recently widowed as her lover that she stole, Jarl, fell to his death impaled upon a tree while climbing the wall. She's clearly a proper fucking warrior princess, man, like a real cultured wildling, and some may think she is under the impression that she stole Jon Snow. Val even brings up Jarl's death to Jon like twice. Unlike Melisandre, Val didn't have to trick Ghost into coming up to her. And fuck me, what else is there? Oh yeah, even the fucking stars are telling us about Jon and Val, man. Just listen to this. This is why I love the books. The Red Wanderer is a constellation, and it is one of the 7 wanderers visible in the sky over the known world. Now, among the free folk, the Red Wanderer is known as a thief. Supposedly, when it is visible within the constellation of the Moon Maid, it is a good time for a man to steal a woman. Now listen to this shit. If I recall it right, the Red Wanderer was bright the night Jon Snow captured Ygritte, but it was actually in the Moon Maid the night Jon arguably stole Val. It might seem like a stretch, but really it is just, that is how Martin writes, and it's really boner inspiring, if I'm honest. Anyway, Stannis very much wants to use Val as a bargaining chip, as she is the mortar meant to seal the peace between Northmen and free folk. Well, that's it for today. Thanks for watching. Like I said, these are very minor characters, so next time I'll do some more major characters. I'm going to do the missing Martells. Good night.